Welcome, class. Today we're going to learn about some research that's been done about how people learn and how we can use the research to help us succeed in this and your other classes. This is a short overview presentation. We'll be doing activities and using ideas from this all semester. As usual, let's look at today's learning objectives. Remember, I'm always striving to make our classes be smart. Once we've finished this presentation, we'll have activities and assignments that help you show me that we've met our goals. We'll be using some of the techniques that I explain, so be ready. By the end of today's class meeting, you will be able to provide examples of fixed and growth mindsets, be able to explain to a classmate what is meant by fixed and growth mindsets, explain effortful learning and retrieval practice, write and reflect on your own mindset, develop a strategy for your own learning goals. Today's big idea is that we can all grow, but that it shouldn't be easy. We'll talk about why some people think they can't grow, how we can all grow, but explore the paradox of why our learning should be hard if we want to make it stick. We'll learn about the science behind this from writers Brown, Roediger, and McDaniel as they explain the ideas of Carol Dweck and other researchers. Then we'll think about how we can use those ideas. Having talent means being good at something should be easy. If something is hard, it's because you don't have the ability. Those are some false ideas that we may all hold or secretly think about when we struggle with a task. From the outside, smart people may make achievement look easy and straightforward. As a result, students with what is called a fixed mindset often become discouraged when they find a task to be hard. They assume they must not be good at something because it doesn't come naturally. Lynn Siegler, Dweck, and Cohen found that we often assume we failed at something because we are not smart, when in reality we may not have worked hard enough or have used effective learning strategies. This can be especially true if we expect something is going to be hard. We've all heard people say things like, "I'm just no good at math," or "I'll never make the team, I'm not a natural athlete." While it's true that we all start off with certain levels of ability, the truth is most of our skills come from practice and work. The best athletes all have coaches and practice hard. In reality, success is achieved with many hours of behind-the-scenes practice and setbacks that are overcome. It's just the same for academic work. Students with a growth mindset understand that failure is a temporary state that offers an opportunity to learn. Brown et al. Explain that the terms fixed and growth mindset come from Carol Dweck's work. She noticed some people assume they can't be smart because they struggled with something or even failed at a task. These people started to avoid things they thought would be hard so that they would not fail. They didn't think they could improve, and they didn't want to look stupid. These are the people with fixed mindsets. People with fixed mindsets believe we are born with all the ability and intelligence we will ever have. People with growth mindsets like challenges. They understand that to learn things we need to make mistakes. Easy things are safe, but we don't improve. Our abilities can grow. If we practice and if we push our limits, we can improve. So be brave. Make mistakes. Being able to easily answer something does not mean you are smarter. Likewise, only answering questions we find easy is not a smart strategy. We become smarter by building on our basic abilities with effort and persistence. Agarwal, Roediger, McDaniel, and McDermott report on research showing that effortful learning, where we push ourselves and where we display grit, a willingness to persist through setbacks, is deeper and longer-lasting learning. Roediger et al. Also studied how mindsets can affect us as we get used to being in a college environment after high school or from already having had a career. As new students, we may feel out of our depth. It's not just how we handle a specific class that we may find hard, but how we handle being in the bigger or different pond of college. We are all adjusting to a new environment. Some students used to finding school easy may be facing material they find hard for the first time in their life and question if they belong. They are suddenly experiencing a fixed mindset. Jaeger et al., who work with Dweck, found that students who understand that first-year adjustments are normal and work to transition will succeed. A growth mindset is important in all areas of life, socially as well as academically. Now that we've learned about the myth of talent and that natural ability is only a small part of success, let's start thinking about how we can change can't into can. Research shows that intelligence and abilities can grow with effort, persistence, and careful strategies. We'll discuss some specific strategies later in the presentation. As we learned earlier, Carol Dweck calls these fixed and growth mindsets. We can think of them as can't and can mindsets. Just as our abilities and intelligences can change, so can our mindsets. Despite being called a fixed mindset, we can change it. In the next part of the presentation, we're going to look at some ways we can use effortful learning and study strategies to change our mindsets and get rid of the can't. Effortful learning doesn't mean staring miserably at our books or rereading over and over. It doesn't just mean trying hard or getting rewarded for effort. As well as working hard, it means thinking carefully about what we are doing when we study and thinking about how to improve our skills. Things that we find difficult to achieve are the things that stay with us. Brown et al. Argue most of what the typical learner thinks they know about studying is wrong. We erroneously focus on repeated exposure to material and hope that it will be retained. While remembering material is foundational, the authors stress that it is our ability to retrieve and use it that is true learning. They make the case that frequent testing helps learners both recall material as well as help them evaluate what they yet need to master. The act of retrieving information helps us remember. It actually makes the information stick more in our brains. This is why we have so many small quizzes in this class. I'm not just testing to see if you remember. We're helping the information stick as well as seeing what we need to work on more. How can intelligence and abilities grow with effort, persistence, and careful strategies? Well, here are the specific strategies I promised you earlier. These come from the book by Brown et al., appropriately called Make It Stick: The Science of Successful Learning. This is a very quick overview. We'll be visiting each one in detail over the semester. The first one is retrieval practice. Have you had the experience of studying really hard the night before, passing the exam, and then forgetting all the information? This is because the information never made it out of our short-term memories. To truly learn, we need to get our information into our long-term memories. Agarwal et al. Offer a concept called retrieval practice. This focuses on the importance of being able to retrieve and use what we have learned. By working to recall, we can deepen our learning and check our gaps. It is a study tool for students that builds long-term memory and understanding rather than the short-term successes that stem from most study for the test strategies. We'll work on how to do this during our activity today, as well as develop ideas we can all use. This is why I don't simply tell you the answers in class. This way of teaching is closer to coaching. I want you all to be working on your skills every day, using the materials and discovering what you need to do next. The second one is spacing. Space out your learning. Yes, this can mean taking a study break, but it also means leaving time between studying. Gaps between study sessions lets the material make it to our long-term memories. Often, we use what Brown et al. Call massed practice, also known as cramming, because it feels productive, but it's a short-term fix. Repeated short sessions with gaps between them work much better, especially when combined with the next two techniques, interleaving, and calibrating. The third one is interleaving. This means mixing it up. Have you had the experience of spending a long time on solving one type of problem, moving on to the next type, and feeling like you've got it, only to get to an exam and feel lost because all the types of problem are there in random order? Working on skills in isolation means we can become falsely confident and miss the skill of how to select the right type of strategy. Brown et al. Liken it to going up to bat, feeling good about your swings, but then being destroyed by a pitcher who mixes it up. Interleaving feels harder when you do it, but it pays off at game or exam time. The fourth one is called calibrating. When we space and interleave, we also need to check in with our progress. Are we on track? What are we doing well? And what are we still missing? We need to make sure we are heading in the right direction. Brown et al. Remind us to check outside ourselves. We can be too hard or too easy on ourselves, so we should try a practice test or work with someone else to find out objectively how well we are doing with our studying. The fifth one is elaborating. Brown et al. Suggest taking what you know and working to connect it to real-life examples or even metaphors. It can include paraphrasing or even teaching the idea to someone else using your own explanations. The pictures in this slideshow are a form of elaboration. I've chosen images to connect the ideas visually, sometimes literally and sometimes metaphorically. This picture, for example, shows ideas leaving the man's head and changing from sketches to gears. To me, it shows how ideas, like elaboration, can become real. Metaphors often work best as a study skill when we select them for ourselves. You'll choose metaphors for ideas later in the course. The sixth one is generating. In this context, generating means trying to figure out for yourself before seeing the answer. Frustrating, right? But Brown et al. Explained that experiential learning, that is, we learn about something by trying to do it, is much more effective than just being told about it. We remember the material much better as well. We know this is true if we try elaborating about this. Have you ever only read instructions and then been able to do something? What if a coach said, "This handout shows how to clear a hurdle," and then sent you out to run a race? We need to try a few techniques to see what works best to get our back foot up enough to not knock over the hurdles. Generating asks us to figure out solutions to problems rather than just follow instructions. The seventh one is reflecting. We know this one. I ask you to do a metacognitive exercise every class. It combines many of the other techniques. When we reflect, we think back over our performance and self-check. We make connections to other ideas, and we make plans for how to move forward. Well, that is a long list of terms, and each one deserves time to explore. We'll be spreading those strategies out throughout the course. We'll test them out and come up with ways of using them that suit us. Each Friday from now on will be Strategies Day, where we examine different tools from this list. We will also share and create our own ways of using them so that we build a mental library of techniques to draw on. In class today, we'll be trying out some retrieval practice, and I know you've noticed we are already using reflecting or metacognition in our journals. In a moment, I will summarize our presentation. First, I'm giving you a heads up about the rest of the class. We are going to use the learning objectives for our activities. We'll be using the idea of retrieval practice, so expect to be answering some questions as a class. You all have several different cards that you'll hold up as we discuss the materials to show your responses. After the class retrieval practice, you'll be working on individual writing activities in your journals. Last week, we talked about metacognition and wrote a reflection about the myth of learning styles. This week, you'll be writing an entry about growth and fixed mindsets. I will provide a prompt for you after the presentation. You'll complete your entry by writing an action plan. That is some strategies for your own study and learning goals. So what have we learned today? We learned the key terms growth and fixed mindset. If you have a growth mindset, you believe you can improve your skills and are willing to be challenged. You're not afraid to make mistakes because that's how we learn. If you have a fixed mindset, you believe your skills and intelligence are fixed. You may believe that smart people find tasks easy, and that if something is hard, it is evidence you are not good at it. We also learned that our natural abilities are really only the beginning, and that effortful learning and smart strategies are what can help us succeed. We learned that a strategy called retrieval practice can help us study more effectively and make things stick. And we learned that tests are a way to learn and understand, not just a way to prove you remember something. Finally, here is a slide showing you where I read about these ideas. Remember, we need to cite our work. Now, let's get ready to discuss, retrieve some ideas, and reflect.